Hi, this is bankruptcy lawyer Robert Weed. I know you have some questions about the bankruptcy process, and if we can go over those on our website here, then when we get together in person, we'd like to move pretty quickly to the specifics of your situation so we know we're doing the right thing for you. I've done bankruptcies for 12,000 people in Northern Virginia, and I can tell you that no two of them are exactly the same, and I'm sure that's true of you too. Especially under the new law, each person's situation in terms of how we prove to the court that you can't afford to keep paying your debts, if in fact you can't afford it, is a little bit different, and so we have to go over everything in detail to work out the right way to handle it for you. When you come in to see me, I like to start with the details and we build out, so I start with your cars. You need a car to get to work and get around, and one of the things in Virginia you have to be very careful of is the bankruptcy court likes to take and sell people's cars, and we absolutely want to make sure that does not happen to you. So getting the details on what kind of cars you have, can we protect the cars, and if there's something tricky we need to do to protect the cars, we'll set that up. Then if you own real estate, we talk about that, find out whether you want to keep the house, whether you want to move out, whether you want to hang on to it through the end of the school year or until your teenager graduates from high school. Are you just sick of the place? Have you already moved out? There are a whole lot of questions that come out when we talk about the house. Also, an important issue on the house is whether there's a homeowners association or particularly a condo association that has really high fees, which we see in some people in Northern Virginia, and how we're going to protect you from continuing to get killed on those condo fees often again requires a lot of strategy. We talk about your retirements. Your retirements are safe, but we want to know what they are, and sometimes in order to get you eligible we need to make some adjustments with how much money you're putting into those retirements. Virginia only allows you to have $5,000 money in the bank. For most people that's not a problem. Some people it is. Sometimes that goes lower because of the cars, and so what your cash situation is important. Sometimes there is a little bit of extra money because people have been holding on to it while they figured out what to do, and sometimes I send people to go take care of postponed dental work or have laser vision correction or go out and spend the money on something that they can't repossess from you. You absolutely do not want to bury it in your backyard or send it to your brother. That makes the court very angry, and in very extreme situations, 1 or 2 people a year do go to jail for that. None of the people who've ever had me as their lawyer. Then we go briefly over the household furniture. That's not an issue here in Alexandria. Over at the bankruptcy court in Harrisonburg, where I guess they have less to do, the court will sometimes go and look at people's furniture. Here they pretty much just look at that page. If you leave the whole page blank, again they get angry at you and think you're being smart with them and look for an opportunity to take that out on you. But if you show you have some furniture, almost always that's not a problem. There have only been 2 clients that I've had out of the 12,000 where the court came to look at their furniture. One of those, a guy had lost a lot of money in a software company. Totally separate from that, he had a landlord-tenant dispute. He was the landlord. His tenant was Harvard Law School, a downtown lawyer, the kind of lawyer who gives lawyers a bad name. And she was really angry at him and made the bankruptcy court go through his house, and they decided he wasn't allowed to keep his fish tank, and they took his fish tank. That's the second worst result I've ever had on that. The worst result, I had one guy who had a small business, and he had borrowed $200,000 from some not very nice people in Miami. One of those people, which he did not tell me until we were pretty far into this, had lived in his house with him for 6 months, and that fella persuaded the court that my client had some really valuable art which didn't show up on the list of things he told me about, and he did get into a heap of trouble. So watch out for that. But personal grudge creditors, it's really important that you fill out the forms really accurately. The only other time I've even ever heard of this, about 10 years ago, the Washington Times did an article on bankruptcy and managed to get some little old lady down in Woodbridge to talk to him. And she said, you know, they never come by my house, and so they didn't know I have a piano that's worth $12,000. Well, after that showed up in the newspaper, they did have to go by her house. They didn't think the piano was worth $12,000, and they let it go. But don't do newspaper interviews when you're done. That's the lesson of that. Other than those three, having furniture is just not an issue with this court here, as long as you show you have some, or if you really have none. If it all got lost when the marriage split up or something, we need to explain that so they don't think we're being smart with them. After we finish with the things you own, we go over and we look at the debts. We like to get a credit report for you, and the Experian.com/report access credit report we think is the most useful, because one of the things that one gives us that most of them don't is the balances going backwards. And we want to look back the last 6 months and see what they're showing has been put on the credit cards. And if using my experience, I look at that, and if I think one of the creditors is likely to come into the bankruptcy court and fight us because you've been using his card too recently for too much, then we plan to put another couple months between you and that last charge so we avoid that problem. Not everything shows up on the credit reports. Sometimes something's not there and we just don't know why. Another reason it's not there is if you have a little small business, Robert Weed's Law Office, Fred's Plumbing, something like that. If you have a credit card in that name, that'll be a personal obligation for you, but it usually does not show up on the credit report. And we'll need to get that bill from you. The credit unions particularly are not consistent. Sometimes they show up, sometimes they don't. I don't know exactly why that is, but we'll look at the credit report together to see if there are potentially any problems, and also to make sure that we're not missing something that's not on the credit report that we'll need to hear more from you. Of course, the medical bills are rarely on the credit report. If you have an old landlord who's mad at you, usually that's not too, so we'll identify all that. Then we look at your family and your financial situation, looking at the names and ages of children. If there are, that again leads to a discussion. Some of the time, do you need to stay in the same school district? That may affect what we want to do. Then we look at the income situation. If there have been a big change, we can do things differently. If there's a big increase, we may be in danger of losing your eligibility unless we hurry up. If you recently got laid off and there's you were lucky enough to get a severance package, we sometimes need to wait that out before you're eligible. So we go over all that. And then the details of your budget. If you're over the median income, which is the automatic eligibility, and more than half of the people I see are, then we put all the information on your budget and out of your pay stubs into our computer, and we run that through the court's formula and make sure you're eligible. All that takes us about an hour. Then we work out a strategy of how soon would be the best time to file bankruptcy, what I'm going to charge you, a payment schedule from there. I answer every question you have at that point, and usually for a lot better than 9 out of 10 people, I can tell you exactly what we're going to do, that it will work for you, and this will work at least as well as you hope.